I am putting strips on the holes that I cut out for Jack's face. I cut them out last night because he needs the eyes inset. And as you can see here, I'm draping the paper mache in, but I'm also, shoot, not deep enough. I have to make sure he has a socket because eyes have a socket, an indent. So I'm going to put a few layers in his eyes, but I don't want to cover up the nose holes. Those are going to be a little bit smaller, harder to work with actually. But the paste that I'm using is, I made liquid starch out of cornstarch and water. 2 tablespoons cornstarch, 1 cup boiling water. And what I do is I mix the cornstarch with it, and then once I have the cornstarch liquid form, because I don't want it to clump up, and if you don't mix it in the warm water first, it clumps up. And then I bring my water to a boil, and I dump the cornstarch water mixture into the pot, and I let it cook for a little bit so it gets a thick, not a real thick, but like a pasty consistency. And then I turn it off and put it in a container and put it to the side. And the reason I put it to the side is, 1, so it'll cool down, and 2, so that it I can use it to make my paper mache paste. Once that's cool, then I add 6 cups of flour. I put 6 cups of flour in a bowl. I add 1 cup of Elmer's glue, and then, boy, this is going to be tricky. Then I add the liquid starch. I add 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt. That prevents it from getting moldy and mildew. And then I add my water. The water is anywhere between 7 to 10 cups of water, depending on how much flour you put in actually. And then the cornstarch. I think I said that backwards, but either way. I make it so it looks like pancake syrup, see? It just drips. It doesn't, I don't want it to be really runny because then it's hard to work with and it doesn't cure as well. I also, when I make this up, I usually make a couple of batches because I also use this to make my clay. Always got to be different. I put these eyes on an angle, so the paper mache is going to be, I have to work with it and take my time doing it so that there's not a lot of creases or air pockets. Once I get a couple of layers of this on, then, on the eyes, I'll let him dry, and then I will start the bottom. I have to put my PVC piping in at his neck area, and I have to make sure that that's solid and steady before I can even think about working with the clay. So I have to, it's going to be a slow process. Guaranteed. It's going to be a very slow process because I'm picky with what I do, and 2, I want it to last for, more than just 1 year. I already put the first layer onto Jack's eyes and closed in his nose holes right here. Now I'm going to turn him over, and right here in the hole I'm going to put in a piece of PVC piping which will support his head, and I'm going to do that with masking tape. You line up where you want it to be based on where his nose is, because you want his head to be even when you're all done. So you put the first piece in. You can get the masking tape at the Dollar Tree for $1, so it's not that bad if you're wasting it. I'm only doing this so it'll hold the pipe in place as I paper mache around it and over top of it to make it so it stays and it's more permanent, because you're going to need this. You're going to have a PVC piping to support his head into his body that we're going to make later on. And once you've got that so it's pretty much in place where you want it, I'm going to do a couple more pieces just because it's awful wobbly. Then you can start doing the paper mache on top of the masking tape, and it won't affect the paper mache at all because it'll be underneath everything. And that should be good. So we're going to do a couple of layers over top of that. Yeah. Over top of the PVC piping, so that way we know it's reinforced and it's supported pretty good. Now I have my paper mache paste on the side, and because of the angle where I have the camera, you can't really see it that well. But I stick the paper into the paper mache and then the paste, and then I wipe the excess off, and I just keep doing that because you don't need a whole lot of the paste. But you do need to have the paper completely covered in the paste, or it won't harden properly. And you really need this to harden really good. You're gonna want to do a few layers of this. Then you gotta let him dry. Okay, this layer dries, so now we're gonna put on another layer. And this is still a little damp up here, but yeah, I put a piece of paper here and now I have to mache it down because it's stuck and I can't get it back up. I had to support the bar, it kept trying to fall over, so I supported it overnight, and now I'm going to put a few more layers and let him dry some more. We've really got to support that really good. I mean, after we do the paper mache and then we put on the clay, it should be supported pretty well. But you still want it to, you don't want it to break. When I did the pumpkin last year, and you can see the pumpkin over there in the background, right there. I did his handle, and I did his stem. I did it really narrow, so I ended up having to fix him this year because I broke the stem last year when I was putting him away. And you don't want that to happen because then you have to go back and repatch and repair, and you really don't want to have to do that. So if you can avoid it from happening, try to. So now, like I said, I'm putting on another layer. And then we're going to leave this sit to dry. Once we have this completely done, then we can go on to back to his face and finish doing a couple more layers for his eyes and such. Do a few more layers all the way around his entire head, and then we can start the clay. And the clay is what pretty much forms and shapes everything so he looks like Jack. It doesn't matter how you put these on or what order you put them on, as long as you have, you know, quite a few layers. I usually try to do about 5 to 6 layers. And sometimes I do lose count, so it winds up being 6 or 7. But either way, you need at least 5 or 6 layers so that, you know, he's hard as a rock and very supported. I'm finding that the smaller the pieces to work around his head, or this pole with, the easier that they are to shape. So I'm going to do a bunch of little pieces all the way around it. I just slide my finger to make sure there's no air pockets and, you know, remove any air pockets if there is any. So I slide my finger around it. Usually I use a paintbrush to do this so that both hands are not covered in paper mache paste. It's just, I'm finding it a little easier and quicker to work with it using my fingers. One more and then I think we're done with him till tomorrow. Actually, I think we might have to do 2 more. This one and 1 more. Okay, so all we can do today, and I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then we'll be back once it dries to do another layer. Alright, it took 2 days for this to dry, and it's dried pretty good. So now I'm going to add another layer. I winded up getting a phone call, so I muted the volume, but I figured I'd let you know what I was doing. I did a couple more layers on his eyes, and you'll see that playing as I'm talking to you right now. And now he's drying, and once he's completely dry, I will start the next video clip. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. And if you like what you're watching, hit the like button down there. Don't forget to check back later to see my next video and how he's coming along.